The four faces of one of the most popular gyms in MMA are all back, and all of their fights have been announced, and I'm going to be covering all of them in today's video. And the first one that I'm going to be talking about is Carlos Protesz's next fight against Geoff Neal. Geoff Neal, I'm very excited to be fighting with Geoff Neal. Carlos Protesz versus Geoff Neal is going to be taking place on UFC 319 as the featured bout on that pay-per-view, which is actually not too bad of a pay-per-view. I was worried that that fight card was going to be absolutely atrocious, just like UFC 318 was, but no, UFC 319 is actually decent. I would argue it's even better than International Fight Week, so that's not too bad. But Carlos Protesz versus Geoff Neal is going to be an absolute war. Geoff Neal's coming off of a pretty nasty TKO win over RDA, but RDA did mess up his knee pretty bad early into that fight, so it's not too amazing of a win, but I think it was pretty obvious where that fight was going. And Carlos Protesz is coming off of a loss to Ian Gary, where he did get shown levels early, but his power showed late, and he almost got the knockout finish in round 4. Or not in round 4, round 5, but he also did win round 4, so great fight from Carlos Protesz, although he did lose. His stock is still level, and I do think that he beats Geoff Neal. This fight is going to stay on the feet, I assume. Most likely going to stay on the feet. Although Geoff Neal likes to do this thing where sometimes he'll clinch against the fence for 3 straight rounds and lose a split decision. Or he'll go to war and get an early TKO or have an amazing fight of the night performance. You know? It's kind of hard to decide what type of performance you're going to be getting out of Geoff Neal. So that's why I'm going to be picking Carlos Protesz in this fight. We know that Carlos Protesz is going to bring it on the feet. And if Geoff Neal tries to clinch up with Carlos Protesz, I don't think that he'll be able to out-damage the damage that Protesz is going to be doing on Geoff Neal at range. I just don't think that Geoff Neal is going to be able to get enough damage in this fight. I don't think that he's going to be able to win enough rounds. I'm going to be taking Carlos Protesz by a 29-28 unanimous decision. The most recent fighting nerd to get his fight announced is Mauricio Rufi, and he's going to be taking on Benoit Denis in September on the UFC Paris card. Kyle Barajo is also going to be on that card, taking on Nassourdine Mavv. But the first fight that I'm going to be talking about is Mauricio Rufi versus Benoit Denis. And I know that a lot of people are picking Rufi in this one, but I also see a lot of people picking Benoit. This is one of those fights where there's a fan base on both sides that are very, very strong to their opinion on each fighter, right? One side either thinks Rufi's going to get an easy KO, and the other side just thinks Benoit's going to maul Mauricio Rufi in the grappling. And I am on the side of Mauricio Rufi. I know that not much has been proven from Mauricio Rufi, but the calmness and the composure that I've seen in there, even though he's fighting unranked contenders like Jamie Malarkey, James Yontop, Bobby Green, right? But he is still looking so calm and so composed in there on the feet. And it's like, dude, I have no reason to not feel confident in him after Benoit Denis was getting tagged up by Kyle Prepolek on like 3 days' notice. How are you getting tagged up by Kyle Prepolek on 3 days' notice, dude? I'm seriously scared for Benoit in this fight. He's so slow on the feet. I think he gets chinned out cold. I know that I might sound like a casual if Rufi does not look good, because I am riding very, very high with Rufi, even though he hasn't really proved anything other than a spinning wheel kick KO. But listen, dude, Rufi is so fast on the feet. He's so calm and composed. His teammates around him are winning. It's like, I have no reason to not believe in the fighting nerds hype. I'm backing with Mauricio Rufi in this fight. Benoit Denis has looked so slow on the feet recently. He looked so slow against Dustin Poirier. He looked so slow in his last fight against Kyle Prepolek. Renato Moicano was showing him levels on the feet. All right. I don't think he beats Mauricio Rufi. Give me Mauricio Rufi by a second round. The same fighting nerd that is going to be fighting on that Paris card is Bajayo, and he's going to be taking on Nassourdine Mavv. And listen, this fight is probably the most high-level fight out of all of them. Jean Silva, Diego Lopes may be more high-level, but Kyle Barajo is debatably the highest. He's definitely the highest ranked fighting nerd. There's the most stakes on the line in this fight. The winner of this fight is definitely next up for a title shot at middleweight, and I do not think that Kyle Barajo wins at all. I think Nassourdine Mavv has looked amazing in his last few fights. He absolutely dismantled Jared Cannonier. I know that it was an early stoppage, but he was piecing him apart. All right, let's be real. He chinned Izzy out cold. You know, he knocked Izzy out. I mean, he's had some absolutely amazing wins. I know that loss to Sean Strickland is pretty bad, and don't get me wrong, that loss to Strickland is bad. He did get kind of pieced up and destroyed by Sean Strickland on short notice at 205. Strickland was fat in that fight. Very, very fat. Looked very, very out of shape. That was not a good look from Nassourdine Mavv. But recently, Nassourdine has absolutely been hitting his strides. He outstruck Izzy. He was speed-mogging Izzy out there. Speed-mogging Izzy on the feet. Outboxing him, out-jabbing him at range. Just finding his range on his Radesanya. And I think that he's going to be able to do the same thing on Cal Braulio. Cal Braulio does have pretty good grappling and good wrestling, but he hasn't really been able to show real dominance in the grappling like a Khamzat Chimaev to the point where I could pick him to beat Nassourdine Mavv because of it. And his striking has not really shown to be anything that great. I know that he knocked out Paul Craig, but besides that, he hasn't really shown amazing striking in his career. He did drop Jared Cannonier pretty badly in the 5th, but besides that, not a lot happened in the first 4 rounds. The fight was pretty close. He didn't really have Jared Cannonier too hurt on the feet until the very end, and Cannonier still survived. So it was nothing close to when Mavv chinned Izzy, right? So I'm going to be picking Nassourdine Mavv in this fight pretty comfortably. I'm going to go with a 30-27 unanimous decision. I think Bajayo's grappling gets shut down, and Mavv just picks him apart at range. The final fighting nerd that I'm going to be discussing is Jean Silva, and his next fight is going to be against Diego Lopes, and I am so hyped for this fight. This fight's going to be absolutely amazing. Next up is definitely in line for a title shot, I would at least assume. Diego Lopes, maybe not, because I don't know if he would have a second fight with Volk if Volk beats Evloev if they fight. Who even knows what's going to happen in the title picture? But for Jean Silva, if he wins this fight, a title shot is definitely in his sights. And an Alexander Volkanovski knockout might be on the rise for Jean Silva if he wins this fight, and I do think that he will. A lot of people talk about Diego Lopes, like how he's going to show levels to Jean Silva, and how he's just going to absolutely put on a striking showcase and show a technical display and just absolutely show Jean Silva levels. Listen, Jean Silva walks forward, can't cut off the cage, and throws big mean hooks. Big mean, gnarly hooks. He doesn't show anybody levels ever. His best win is Brian Ortega. He almost lost to Dan Ige, took Brian Ortega to a decision, and besides that, his only other knockout is like Sadiq Youssef. I think Diego Lopes is so overrated, dude. And he got totally pieced by Alexander Volkanovski. He dropped him for a split second in the second round, so now everybody thinks that he's legit. He's not, I don't think. All right, I know that Diego Lopes got to the top, but I don't think he's as good as everyone's saying he is. And I don't think that Jean Silva is this like otherworldly Ilia Topuria level superstar either. But I do think that he easily gets past Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes is very overrated in my opinion. I do think that he's going to get TKO'd early by Jean Silva. I think he'll kind of be toying around with him on the feet a little bit for the first couple rounds. It'll be close, but I think towards the end of the second, Jean Silva's going to catch him bad and put him away by TKO.